In a small, quiet town, Sarah lived with her daughter Lily. Life hadn't been easy for Sarah after her divorce. It felt like a heavy weight that she carried every day. She had always believed that she could handle anything, but being a single mother to a young child was starting to wear her down. Sarah worked long hours at a small diner in the town, trying to make ends meet. The work wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills, and that was all she could ask for. Each day she would get up early, drop Lily off at school, and head straight to work. Then when her shift ended, she would pick Lily up, and they'd go home to their small house on the outskirts of town. There were many moments when Sarah wondered if she was doing enough. She had grown accustomed to feeling exhausted, but the loneliness was something she couldn't shake. It wasn't just the long hours at the diner. It was the emptiness she felt inside. She longed for companionship, for someone who would share the load with her, someone who would be there to laugh with, someone who would understand her struggles. But Sarah had learned over the years that life didn't always give you what you needed, especially when it came to love. Before Lily was born, Sarah had been married to a man she thought she would spend the rest of her life with. They had big dreams of building a family and growing old together. But things didn't turn out the way they had imagined. Her ex-husband had been kind at first, but over time he became distant. The love they once shared seemed to fade away, leaving behind only misunderstandings and resentment. The divorce had been hard on Sarah, but what hurt the most was how it affected Lily. Her little girl didn't understand why her daddy wasn't around anymore, and that broke Sarah's heart every time she saw Lily's confused face. Being a single mother was not something Sarah had planned. She never imagined that she would be in this situation. Every day she struggled to balance work, parenting, and trying to hold on to some semblance of a normal life. There were days when she felt like she was barely keeping her head above water. But Lily needed her, and that's what kept Sarah going. Lily, on the other hand, was a smart and perceptive child. She noticed things that Sarah hadn't realized. She could see the tiredness in her mother's eyes when she came home after long shifts at the diner. She could feel the heaviness in the air during the quiet moments at home when Sarah was lost in her own thoughts. Though Lily was young, she was wise beyond her years. She understood that something was missing in their lives. And deep down she knew it was more than just the absence of a father figure. One evening after a long day, Sarah and Lily were sitting on the porch, enjoying the cool breeze of the early evening. The sun had just begun to set, casting a soft orange glow over the horizon. Sarah and Lily didn't say much at first, but the silence between them was comfortable. Sarah cherished these small moments with her daughter. She had always been the kind of mother who tried her best to provide a sense of stability for Lily, even though she was struggling herself. Lily, however, seemed to have something on her mind. She was fidgeting with her fingers, something she did when she was deep in thought. Sarah noticed this and smiled, trying to break the silence. "What's on your mind, sweetie?" she asked gently. Lily looked up at her mother, her big brown eyes wide with curiosity. "Mama," she began, her voice soft but serious, "why don't you have a boyfriend?" Sarah was taken aback by the question. She had never really thought about it. She had always been so focused on taking care of Lily and working to support them both that the idea of dating had never crossed her mind. At first, Sarah chuckled nervously, unsure of how to answer. "Well, sweetie," she said, "it's just that I've been so busy with work and taking care of you. I haven't really had time to think about that." Lily didn't seem satisfied with this answer. She thought for a moment, and then, with the innocence only a child could have, she said, "But Mama, you need someone. You're always so tired, and you don't smile like you used to." Her words struck Sarah like a bolt of lightning. She didn't know how to respond. How could a little girl understand the deep sadness her mother tried so hard to hide? Sarah's heart ached at Lily's words. She had always tried to shield her daughter from the difficulties of life, but Lily had seen right through it. The truth was, Sarah wasn't just tired from work. She was emotionally drained. She had spent so many years trying to hold everything together that she had forgotten what it was like to feel truly happy, to feel loved. She missed the days when she had someone to talk to, someone who would listen to her without judgment. She missed the connection that came with being in a loving relationship. Lily's innocence and honesty had shaken Sarah in a way she didn't expect. She had never realized how much her own struggles had affected her daughter. Lily had always been a sweet and caring child, but hearing her talk about her mama needing someone made Sarah feel like she had been neglecting her own emotional well-being. In a way, Lily had given voice to what Sarah had been too afraid to admit to herself. She needed love too. But as much as Sarah longed for companionship, She wasn't sure she was ready to open her heart again. After everything that had happened with her divorce, she wasn't sure if she could trust anyone with her heart. She had built walls around herself to protect her from getting hurt again, and besides, how could she think about dating when her daughter needed her so much? Lily was her priority, and Sarah didn't want to risk putting her through another heartbreak. Still, Lily's words lingered in Sarah's mind long after that evening. It was as if a small seed had been planted in her heart, a reminder that she wasn't just a mother. She was a woman with hopes, dreams, and emotions. She had spent so long pouring all of herself into taking care of Lily that she had forgotten what it felt like to take care of herself. But Sarah wasn't sure how to navigate the path back to love or if she was even ready for it. The thought of opening up to someone again scared her. Yet at the same time, it also made her feel a little less alone. As the days passed, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted inside her. She wasn't just a mother anymore. She was a woman who deserved to feel happiness too, and maybe, just maybe, there was a chance for her to find it again. But for now, she focused on what she knew best, taking care of Lily. It was the one thing she could be sure of. The one thing she could give her daughter without hesitation. Little did Sarah know, Lily's simple question would be the beginning of a journey neither of them could have ever expected. The days following that evening on the porch felt different for Sarah. Lily's question had stayed with her, lingering in the back of her mind like a whisper she couldn't ignore. Sarah had always tried to shield her daughter from the difficulties of life, believing that as long as she worked hard and provided for her, that was all that mattered. But Lily's words had made Sarah question everything. It wasn't just about providing for her daughter anymore. It was about being whole as a person. She realized that she had neglected her own emotional needs for so long, pouring everything into her role as a mother, that she had forgotten what it meant to be a woman who deserved love and happiness. That morning, after dropping Lily off at school, Sarah went to her usual spot at the diner. The smell of sizzling bacon and freshly brewed coffee filled the air, and the familiar sound of clinking dishes and soft chatter surrounded her. Sarah had worked at the diner for years, and it had become a second home to her. She knew everyone who came in, from the regulars to the occasional visitors who were passing through town. But even in the busy atmosphere of the diner, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing from her life. As she poured coffee for a customer at the counter, she thought about Lily's words. Her daughter had asked for something Sarah hadn't even realized she needed. Sarah had never thought about dating again, not since her divorce. She had convinced herself that being a mother was enough. But now it seemed that Lily's innocent wish had cracked open a door that Sarah had kept tightly shut for years. Could she really think about love again? Was it possible for someone like her, someone who had been burned by love in the past, to open up to the idea of having a partner again? The more Sarah thought about it, the more the idea began to feel less impossible. She wasn't looking for someone to replace Lily's father. No one could ever take that place. But perhaps, just maybe, she could find someone who would make her feel happy again, someone who would bring a little light into her life, someone who could share in the joy of raising Lily and building a future together. The next few days felt like a blur of work and routine, but something in Sarah had shifted. She'd begun to notice people in a way she hadn't before. She'd catch herself glancing at men who came into the diner, wondering what it would be like to talk to them, to go out on a date, to feel the excitement of getting to know someone new. It felt strange, almost foreign, like stepping into a world she hadn't visited in a long time. She wasn't sure if she was ready to dive back into that world, but the thought of it was beginning to excite her just a little. One evening, as Sarah was sitting in her favorite chair at home after putting Lily to bed, she thought about her past relationships. She remembered the joy of falling in love, the excitement of shared experiences, and the dreams they had built together. But she also remembered the pain, the heartbreak, the loneliness, and the feeling of betrayal when things fell apart. It had been hard to open up again after the divorce, but maybe it was time. Maybe it was time to let go of the fear that had kept her from moving forward. That night, Sarah found herself reflecting on the woman she used to be before all the responsibilities of life took over. She had been full of energy and hope, ready to take on the world. She had loved freely and passionately. Somewhere along the way, that part of her had been buried under layers of stress, fear, and the daily grind of being a single mother. She realized that she missed that woman, the one who believed in love, who believed in happiness, It was as if she had forgotten that part of herself. And now, after hearing Lily's words, she couldn't ignore the longing for that part of her life to return. The next few days were filled with a new sense of purpose. Sarah began to take better care of herself, not just for Lily, but for her own well-being. She started exercising again, something she hadn't had time for in years. She bought herself a new dress, something bright and colorful, a far cry from the drab, worn-out clothes she had been wearing. She felt a small spark of excitement when she looked at herself in the mirror. She didn't know what the future held, but she knew one thing for sure. She was ready to start living again. One afternoon, as she was leaving the diner, she ran into an old friend named Rebecca. They hadn't seen each other in years, but the two women had always gotten along well. Rebecca was one of those people who had a natural gift for making others feel comfortable, and her infectious laughter could light up any room. After catching up for a few minutes, Rebecca looked at Sarah with a knowing smile. "You know," she said, "you've been looking so much better lately. There's something different about you." Sarah smiled shyly, feeling a little self-conscious. "I don't know," she said. "I've just been trying to take better care of myself. It's been a rough couple of years, but I think I'm starting to get back to who I used to be." Rebecca raised an eyebrow. "Are you sure that's all it is? Because it looks to me like you might be thinking about something else, something a little more exciting than just getting back into shape." Sarah felt her face flush. "I'm not sure what you mean," she said, trying to play it cool. Rebecca laughed and nudged her playfully. "Come on, Sarah, I know that look. You're thinking about dating again, aren't you?" Sarah's heart skipped a beat. She hadn't said anything to anyone about her thoughts on dating. She hadn't even admitted it to herself yet. But Rebecca's words made her realize something. Maybe she wasn't the only one who saw the change in her. Maybe, just maybe, she was ready to step back into the world of love and relationships. "I don't know if I'm ready for that," Sarah admitted. "But I guess the idea doesn't seem so scary anymore." Rebecca smiled warmly. "That's a good start. Just remember, you deserve to be happy too. You've been so focused on taking care of Lily for so long, but now it's time to think about what makes you happy." Sarah smiled, feeling a little more at peace with the idea. She wasn't sure what the future held, but she knew one thing for sure. She wasn't going to let fear hold her back any longer. She wasn't just a mother. She was a woman who deserved love, joy, and happiness. As Sarah walked home that evening, the sun setting behind her, she felt a sense of hope that she hadn't felt in years. The world seemed a little brighter and her heart felt a little lighter. She didn't know when or how it would happen, but she knew that life was about to change. And this time, it wasn't just about taking care of her daughter. It was about taking care of herself too. The next chapter of Sarah's life was waiting, and she was ready to embrace it. In the weeks that followed, Sarah began to notice subtle changes in her life. It wasn't dramatic or obvious at first, but there was a quiet shift happening within her. She had always been so focused on taking care of Lily, so wrapped up in the routine of work and motherhood, that she hadn't paid much attention to her own needs. But now, for the first time in a long while, Sarah was thinking about herself not in a selfish way, but in a way that made her realize that she, too, deserved happiness. Sarah found herself smiling more often, even during the hardest days. She wasn't sure if it was because of the way the sunlight felt warmer now, or if it was because she was simply allowing herself to feel things she hadn't felt in a long time. Her heart felt a little lighter, and there was a sense of anticipation growing within her, even though she wasn't entirely sure what she was waiting for. One evening, as Sarah was helping Lily with her homework, the little girl looked up from her desk, her brow furrowed in thought. "Mama, do you think it's okay to be happy again?" she asked, her voice unusually serious for a 7-year-old. Sarah paused, surprised by the depth of the question. She looked at her daughter, who was staring at her with wide eyes, waiting for an answer. "What do you mean, sweetie?" Sarah asked, trying to understand the meaning behind her daughter's words. Lily shrugged, her little shoulders rising and falling in a way that only added to the seriousness of her expression. "Well, you've been smiling more lately, and I like it. But I think you miss Daddy sometimes, don't you?" The question took Sarah by surprise. She hadn't realized how much Lily was noticing. Of course, Sarah missed her ex-husband, but she hadn't expected her daughter to bring it up so directly. She wasn't sure how to explain the complexities of adult emotions to a young child, but she knew that honesty, in simple terms, was the best approach. "Lily, Sarah began softly. Sometimes adults miss things from the past. I miss the way things used to be before everything changed. But that doesn't mean I can't be happy now. It just means I'm learning to be okay with things the way they are. Lily seemed satisfied with the answer, nodding as if she understood more than Sarah realized. I just want you to be happy, Mama, she said, her small voice filled with sincerity. You work so hard and I want you to have someone who makes you laugh, someone who makes you feel special. Sarah's heart swelled. How could someone so young understand so much about the world? Lily had always been a thoughtful, sensitive little girl, but this conversation made Sarah see just how much her daughter was in tune with her emotions. It also made Sarah realize that Lily wasn't just asking for a partner for her mother. She was asking for someone who would bring joy and laughter into their home, someone who would bring balance to their family. Sarah hadn't realized how much Lily was yearning for this too. It wasn't just about her own needs for companionship. Lily had been feeling the weight of their family dynamic too. For so long it had just been the two of them. And while they were a great team, Sarah understood that sometimes Lily needed more. A sense of completeness, a sense of security that only comes from knowing there's a steady, loving presence in the home. In the days that followed, Sarah thought more about Lily's words. She had spent so much time focusing on being strong for her daughter that she hadn't stopped to think about the impact her own happiness had on their lives. Lily wanted to see her mother happy, and Sarah wanted the same for Lily. It was becoming increasingly clear that they both needed more than just the bare minimum of survival. They needed to thrive. One Saturday afternoon, after running some errands, Sarah was walking home when she noticed a familiar face in the local park. It was Mark, a man she had met briefly a few weeks ago at a charity event. They had exchanged pleasantries, but there hadn't been much time for a real conversation. Mark had moved to the town recently and was just starting to get to know the people in the area. He was tall, with warm, friendly eyes and an easy smile that made people feel comfortable around him. Sarah had thought about him a few times since their brief meeting, but she had pushed the thought away, unsure of what it meant. After all, she had never considered herself someone who could easily trust again. But seeing him again in the park felt different. He was sitting on a bench reading a book, his attention absorbed in the pages. Sarah paused for a moment, unsure if she should approach him, but something inside her encouraged her to walk over. "Hi, Mark," she called out, feeling a bit shy. He looked up, his face lighting up with recognition. "Sarah," he said warmly, "it's good to see you again. How have you been?" "I've been good," Sarah replied, smiling. "Just staying busy with work and Lily, you know how it is." Mark nodded, his expression sympathetic. "I do. I can't imagine how much work it must be. But it's nice to see you out here enjoying the day." Sarah smiled at his kind words. There was something comforting about Mark's presence, something that made her feel at ease. She sat down next to him on the bench, and for a few minutes they chatted about the town, the weather, and a few other light topics. It was easy to talk to him, and Sarah found herself laughing more than she had in a while. They talked for a while longer, and as the conversation started to wind down, Mark glanced over at Sarah. "You know, it's been really nice talking to you. If you ever feel like grabbing a cup of coffee sometime, I'd love to continue this conversation." Sarah felt a small flutter of excitement in her chest. She hadn't expected to feel this way, but there was something about Mark that made her feel comfortable, even hopeful. She smiled and nodded. "That sounds nice," she said, surprised at how natural the idea felt. "I'd like that." As they exchanged numbers and said their goodbyes, Sarah felt a sense of excitement she hadn't felt in a long time. It wasn't anything serious, but it was a start. A small spark had been lit, and for the first time in years, Sarah allowed herself to feel something more than just the weight of responsibility. There was a possibility, just a small possibility, that things might change. And for the first time in a long time, she allowed herself to hope that change might be a good thing. Later that night, as Sarah tucked Lily into bed, the little girl looked up at her mother with a smile. "Did you have fun today, Mama?" she asked. Sarah smiled, brushing a lock of hair from Lily's forehead. "I did," she said softly. "I met someone new and we talked about all sorts of things. It was nice to have a good conversation." Lily's eyes lit up. "Does this mean you're going to date him?" she asked innocently. Sarah chuckled, the idea both surprising and comforting at the same time. "I don't know about that, sweetie," she said, "but it's nice to think that maybe, just maybe, things could change for the better." Lily smiled, snuggling into her blanket. I hope you find someone who makes you laugh, Mama. You deserve that. Sarah kissed her daughter goodnight, her heart full. She wasn't sure where this would go or if it would go anywhere at all, but for the first time in a long time, she felt like she was ready to embrace the future, and maybe, just maybe, the future was ready to embrace her. The weeks that followed felt like a whirlwind for Sarah. Every day was filled with a mixture of routine and the subtle thrill of something new. She continued to focus on her work and her responsibilities as a mother, but there was a small, quiet shift inside her. Something had changed, and she couldn't quite put her finger on it. She wasn't sure if it was just the excitement of meeting someone new, or if it was something deeper. But there was a sense of hope in her heart that she hadn't felt in years. It wasn't just about Mark anymore, although she thought about him often, but it was also about herself. For the first time in a long time, Sarah had allowed herself to feel like more than just a mother. She had allowed herself to feel like a woman who was worthy of love, joy, and happiness. And even though she was still unsure about what the future might bring, the small steps she was taking toward reconnecting with herself felt empowering. Every time she met Mark, she felt a little more at ease. Their conversations flowed easily, and they laughed more than she thought was possible. It wasn't like the whirlwind romance that people dreamed about, but it was something special, something real. Mark didn't rush things. He was patient, and that was something Sarah appreciated. He seemed to understand that she wasn't ready for anything too serious, but he was also kind and respectful, which made it easier for Sarah to open up, little by little. One Saturday afternoon, after a long week of work, Sarah found herself looking forward to meeting Mark for coffee. It had become a weekly tradition. Nothing too formal, just a casual meet-up at the local cafe. This time, though, it felt different. As she drove into town, her heart fluttered with nervous excitement. She hadn't felt this way in a long time. She parked her car and walked toward the cafe, the warm summer air brushing against her skin. When she walked inside, she spotted Mark sitting at a corner table, a smile instantly spreading across his face when he saw her. Hey, Sarah, he greeted, standing up to pull out the chair for her. His kindness always made her feel at ease. Hi, Mark, she replied, taking the seat across from him. They exchanged pleasantries, talking about their week, the weather, and the little things that seemed so ordinary but felt special in this moment. It was in these small moments that Sarah began to feel like she was part of something bigger, like she was slowly building a connection that could turn into something meaningful. After they had finished their coffee, Sarah felt a sense of peace she hadn't experienced in a while. For a long time, she had been running on autopilot, caught in the cycle of work and motherhood and trying to maintain the walls she had built around herself after the divorce. But now, sitting across from Mark, she realized how much she had been missing out on. It wasn't just about finding someone to fill the empty spaces in her life. It was about opening herself up again, trusting herself to take chances and allowing joy to find its way back into her life. I've really enjoyed our time together, Sarah said, her voice a little softer than usual. She wasn't used to being so open, but something about Mark made her feel comfortable enough to speak her truth. It feels nice to just relax and not think about all the things I usually have to worry about. Mark smiled, his eyes warm. I'm glad you're enjoying it. I've been enjoying it too. You deserve to have fun and take it easy every once in a while, Sarah. His words touched something deep inside her. She had spent so much time focusing on the needs of others, first Lily, then her job, that she had forgotten the importance of taking care of herself. But now, with Mark's gentle encouragement, she was beginning to realize that she could have both, a meaningful relationship and a fulfilling life as a mother. She didn't have to choose one or the other. In fact, she realized that being happy in her personal life could make her even better at being a mother. I never thought I'd feel like this again, Sarah admitted quietly, her gaze dropping to her coffee cup. It's been so long since I felt like myself, you know. I've been so focused on taking care of Lily and making sure everything was running smoothly, but I've forgotten what it feels like to have someone care about me. Mark's expression softened. I get it, Sarah, you've been through a lot. But you deserve happiness too. You're an amazing mother, but you're also an amazing person. And you shouldn't forget that. His words were like a balm to her soul, and Sarah felt a tear well up in her eye, though she quickly blinked it away. It was amazing how such simple words could make her feel seen, heard, and understood. Mark had no idea how much that meant to her, especially since she had spent so many years feeling invisible in her own life. He wasn't trying to fix her or solve her problems. He was simply there, offering kindness and understanding, and that was enough. They sat together for a little while longer, talking about everything and nothing at all, until the cafe began to empty out. As they walked to the door, Sarah felt a sense of contentment she hadn't felt in a long time. It wasn't just about the connection she was building with Mark. It was also about the fact that she was beginning to rebuild a relationship with herself. She was learning to embrace her own needs, her own desires, and her own worth. But as Sarah got into her car and drove home, she was reminded of something that had been weighing on her mind. What would Lily think? Sarah had always protected her daughter from the complexities of relationships, especially since the divorce. She didn't want Lily to feel abandoned or hurt, and the thought of introducing someone new into their lives made her nervous. Lily was still so young, and Sarah didn't want to complicate things for her. She wanted to make sure that any changes they made in their lives were done carefully, thoughtfully, and with Lily's best interests in mind. Later that evening, as Sarah was getting Lily ready for bed, the little girl turned to her with a smile. "Mama, did you have fun today?" Sarah smiled back, brushing a strand of hair from Lily's face. "I did. I spent some time with a friend." Lily's eyes brightened. "Is he your boyfriend?" Sarah laughed softly, a little surprised by the question. "Well, I don't know about that. We're just friends for now." Lily nodded, seeming satisfied with that answer. "Okay, Mama, as long as he makes you smile. You deserve to be happy." Sarah felt a lump in her throat at her daughter's simple yet profound words. She had spent so much time worrying about what might happen, but here Lily was, encouraging her mother to be happy. It was a reminder that even though Sarah had to be careful about how she navigated the changes in her life, Lily was already ahead of her. She wanted her mother to experience joy and love, and that made everything seem a little less daunting. As Sarah tucked Lily into bed and kissed her good night, she felt a wave of gratitude wash over her. She had come a long way, and though she still had doubts and fears, she also had hope. Hope that her life was finally beginning to take shape in a way that made sense. Hope that she could find a balance between being a mother and being a woman deserving of love and happiness. And most of all, she hoped that whatever the future held, it would be a future that brought them both peace, joy, and a sense of belonging. With a deep breath, Sarah turned off the light and walked out of the room, knowing that whatever happened next, she was ready for it. Life was moving forward, and for the first time in years, she was ready to embrace it with open arms. Sarah woke up the next morning with a feeling she hadn't had in a long time, a sense of possibility. It was a Sunday, and the sunlight filtered through the windows of her modest home, casting a warm glow over the kitchen. She was preparing breakfast for herself and Lily, her thoughts still swirling from the events of the past few weeks. Her connection with Mark had deepened, and though she wasn't rushing anything, she couldn't deny that something special was unfolding. It wasn't just about Mark. It was about her. For the first time in years, Sarah was allowing herself to believe that she could have more than just survival. She could have joy, she could have love, and she could have peace. As she scrambled eggs and toasted bread, she couldn't help but smile. It had taken a long time for Sarah to get to this point. The journey from feeling lost and alone to feeling hopeful again hadn't been easy, but it had been worth it. She had come to realize that her life didn't have to be defined by her past or by the mistakes that had brought her here. She had the power to choose her path, to embrace new opportunities, and to build a future that was full of happiness and love, not just for her but for Lily as well. When Lily walked into the kitchen, her hair a mess from sleep and her eyes still heavy, Sarah felt a rush of affection. Her little girl was the center of her world, the one thing that had always kept her grounded. "Good morning, Mama," Lily mumbled as she climbed into the chair at the kitchen table. "Good morning, sweetie," Sarah replied, setting a plate of scrambled eggs in front of her daughter. "Did you sleep well?" Lily nodded, her eyes lighting up. "I had a dream that we went to the beach. It was so nice there, Mama. We could stay there forever, couldn't we?" Sarah smiled, tucking a lock of hair behind Lily's ear. "That sounds like a wonderful dream. Maybe one day we can go to the beach for real." Lily's face brightened at the thought, and Sarah felt a deep sense of gratitude. It wasn't just about the beach or any particular place. It was about the feeling of hope and adventure that came with it. For the first time in a long time, Sarah realized that there was so much she could offer to Lily, not just as a mother, but as a woman who was fully alive again. Later that afternoon, Sarah and Lily went to the park. It was a sunny day and the air was warm and fresh. Lily was playing on the swings, laughing as Sarah pushed her higher and higher. Sarah felt the wind in her hair, and for a moment everything felt perfect. It wasn't that everything in her life was suddenly flawless, but in that moment, she allowed herself to feel a sense of contentment. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was living. As Sarah sat on a nearby bench watching Lily's joyful face as she swung back and forth, she felt a sense of peace settle within her. She knew that she had made progress, but she also knew that there was still work to be done. Life wasn't about finding one perfect moment and holding on to it forever. It was about the little moments, like the laughter of a child, the warmth of the sun, the feeling of connection, and finding joy in them. It was then that Sarah's phone buzzed in her pocket, breaking her thoughts. She pulled it out, seeing a message from Mark. "Hey Sarah, I was thinking, how about dinner tonight? I'd love to spend more time with you." She read the message twice, smiling at how thoughtful Mark was. Over the past few weeks, they had spent time together in casual settings, coffee, walks in the park, but this felt different. Dinner was more intimate, a step forward. But for some reason, Sarah didn't feel nervous or unsure. She was ready. She had come so far, and she realized that if she wanted to experience happiness, she had to embrace it, even when it felt unfamiliar or a little scary. She quickly typed a response. "That sounds great. I'd love to." Mark's reply came almost immediately. "Looking forward to it. I'll pick you up at 6. As the afternoon stretched on, Sarah thought about how far she had come. Just a few months ago, the idea of dating again, of even considering a future beyond being a mother, had seemed impossible. But now she was excited, not just about Mark, but about everything. She was excited about her life, about the possibilities that lay ahead. She was excited about the idea of love, not just romantic love, but the love that came from truly living, from connecting with others and with herself. When the time came for Mark to pick her up, Sarah felt a small wave of nervousness wash over her, but it was different than before. It wasn't anxiety. It was the kind of nervousness that comes with something good, something new. She had chosen this. She had chosen to embrace the future, and she was ready. Mark arrived right on time, his friendly smile greeting Sarah as she opened the door. "You look beautiful," he said, his eyes soft and kind. Sarah blushed slightly, feeling a rush of warmth at the compliment. She hadn't allowed herself to care much about her appearance in a long time, but tonight she felt good. She felt like herself again. They drove to a quiet little restaurant on the outskirts of town. The place was cozy with soft lighting and a relaxed atmosphere. As they sat down, Mark leaned forward slightly, his expression earnest. "Sarah," he said, "I've really enjoyed getting to know you over the past few weeks. I know we're taking things slow, but I just wanted you to know that I like spending time with you. And I think there's something really special here." Sarah's heart skipped a beat. She wasn't sure what she had expected from tonight, but hearing those words filled her with a quiet sense of joy. She had spent so long worrying about whether she was ready to take the next step in her life. But sitting here with Mark, she realized that she was ready. She was ready to open her heart to the possibility of love, to the possibility of a future that wasn't defined by her past, but by the choices she was making now. "I feel the same way," Sarah said, her voice steady and sure. "I'm glad we've been able to take our time. I think it's important, to let things grow naturally." Mark smiled, nodding. "Exactly. No rush, just enjoying the journey together." As they continued their meal, the conversation flowed easily between them. They talked about their dreams, their pasts, their hopes for the future. It felt natural, comfortable. There was no pressure, no expectations, just two people getting to know each other, building something together, one conversation at a time. By the time the evening came to a close, Sarah felt a sense of contentment and peace that she hadn't felt in years. As Mark drove her home, they chatted about their plans for the next few days, and Sarah couldn't help but smile to herself. For the first time in a long time, she felt like her life was full of possibilities. The future no longer seemed daunting or uncertain. It felt like a beautiful blank page, and she was ready to write her own story. When Mark dropped her off at home, he gave her a gentle smile and said, "I'm looking forward to seeing you again." Sarah, take care. I will, she replied, her heart warm. Thanks for a wonderful evening. As Sarah watched Mark drive away, she stood there for a moment, just breathing in the night air. She knew that this was only the beginning of something beautiful, not just with Mark, but with herself. She had come so far from the woman she had been, someone who was just surviving, just getting through the days. Now she was living, and for the first time in a long time, she was excited to see where life would take her. She turned to go inside, her heart light, knowing that whatever the future held, she was ready to embrace it fully. For the first time in years, she believed that happiness wasn't just a dream. It was something she could reach out and touch. And it all started with choosing to love herself again.